It's Offside with Hawes and McGuire. Hey, welcome to Offside with Hawes and McGuire. I'm Hawes.
I'm McGuire.
Today, as another one of our segments we like to call Shooting the
Shot.
The Shot. That's right, it's pronounced shot.
Not what you would normally say.
Today we're shooting the shot with
a legend.
A legend. And we'll talk about this. Why don't you introduce who we're talking about?
Should we say where we are?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We are at Broadway's
Yes.
Bar and Grill.
Yeah.
Okay. Which, by the way, the best, like honestly, best breakfast in all of Ottawa.
Yeah, it's great
The
breakfast
home
here.
fries.
Yeah.
I for one can attest to the fact that that So if my
You don't miss many meals, eh, bud?
no, well, you know what? Not here. We actually, Kristen, my wife, will actually come and pick them up and bring them home.
No
we
kidding.
can have- absolutely. We're very big Broadway customers.
Well, so is this guy every Tuesday, and we're at the Prince of Wales and Fisher location.
Right.
And we thank them very much for giving us a little bit of space here, because Kilrea comes in here on Tuesdays, as he told me on the phone yesterday when we set this up, Chris. So I feel very thankful that you can do this with us, Kilrea. It's a great spot, and I know you're here with a bunch of guys that many in Ottawa would know. For example, Terry Marcotte and Dave Schreiber here today.
And Donnie Brennan's covering the Red Rocks. Usually here, Donnie Campbell.
Donnie
is
Campbell.
usually here. So we have a good group.
Long-time journalists, and I will formally introduce you, Brian, even though you really don't need any, but he's the winningest coach in Canadian Major Junior Hockey history. 1,193 wins, I believe. 5-time Coach of the Year in the O, 2-time Coach of the Year in Canada, 2-time Memorial Cup winner. Scored the first ever goal for the LA Kings, played with Detroit in the late 50s, had a game with the Red Wings and Gordie Howe. Springfield and his association with Eddie Shore is where we're going to start this interview, Chris, because we're not going to...
Whoa. Before we start...
Yeah, you want to mention something
here, because we've met before. We've actually met on a couple of occasions, and I used to, believe it or not, when I was a comedian, your namesake bar, I used to perform in the basement all the time. Kilrea's on Maribel.
Oh, sir.
On Maribel.
Yeah.
I was there.
Okay. But we met when I was about a 14-year-old kid. Okay, I grew up in a little town, you may know it, Coniston. And
Definitely I do.
All right.
Home with Jimmy Fox.
That's right. Well, literally right across the street from my house.
Really?
Okay.
That's right.
And my parents owned the house that the Foxes lived in. What my father owned at one point prior to them.
Yeah.
And so we grew up. And so my dad he stood for Jimmy Fox for his confirmation, his God, so we've been around. But I was the worst pick you never made, is what I'm saying. You pick Vino, you pick Boyd, you pick Fox. And where are they now? None of them are playing. I'm still playing. So as far as longevity goes, I just want to say I was the better pick.
Yeah, but Jimmy Fox is doing the call for LA Kings. And he'll probably stay there for a while. He's doing a good job.
He's doing a great. He's actually in the California Sports Hall of Fame now.
Yes, he is.
For both that.
And he also owns a vineyard.
That's right.
Yeah, he's very successful.
Yeah, no, he's done very well. He was always a nice guy. He actually taught me the toe drag when I was a kid. So he's a few years older, but
outstanding junior.
My brothers played on that Pee Wee hockey team. I should have brought the picture. I should post it there. So Randy, Jimmy, Chris Vino, Riel Gervin, my two brothers, all on one team in a tiny little town of nothing.
Yeah.
There's also another guy there that was constant, Gerry Foley.
That's right, yeah. But he was
Gerry Foley. I played with Gerry Foley for many years in Springfield. A super individual.
Yeah.
But the funny part was, not only did Sudbury not get any of those three, I drafted Mario Seri out of Sudbury and Danny Lange out of just on the other side of Sudbury, Walden, I think it was. And so we had 5. So when we used to go there, I think we had more fans for us than Sudbury.
Well, I remember going to those games when you guys would come and visit Sudbury. Because everybody loved the success of the other people in town. That's one of the best parts of Northern Ontario, I'll tell you, is that people celebrated the success of other people and really wanted them to succeed once they were on their way. It wasn't easy though. My father tells the story of how a lot of people were very hard on Jimmy when he was coming up. They didn't like the fact that he was so good, and they were screaming at him in the stands and lots of stuff like that. But
then he moved to North Bay and played for North Bay for a
at
couple
14.
years. Yeah.
At 14, no, he was a phenomenal.
For sure, unbelievable.
But you know what? We're not here to talk about Coniston. We're here to talk about Brian Kilrea and some of the benchmark things that you've done in your career. And Liam, you led to the first piece that most people won't even know.
No, most don't. And I had the privilege of attending a Bill Kitchen memorial event with Killer just a number of months back, and I grabbed on my phone just a bit of video of you talking, I believe about 1967 in Springfield, if I've got the year right, when Eddie Shore, and I'm going to roll it out, Killer, correct me on any details I've got wrong, but I think he suspended several players without pay, including Bill White. And I think you spoke up and then ultimately were suspended immediately for speaking up, you and somebody else. And then it led to a confrontation with Shore. And in there, I've got a bit of a gray area at what point Alan Eagleson was called to come down. And you can kind of take it from there, because it's my belief that conference, it's not only my belief, I believe this is a fact, that the actual start of the NHL Players Union, such as it is today, was a genesis of what happened to you in Springfield in '67 with Eddie Shore. Can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, well, as it turned out, the three players were Dale Rowe, Dave Amadio, and Bill White. They were the heart of our team, and they held out at training camp. And they all wanted a $500 raise, which Shore didn't want to give, but finally couldn't start the season without these three defensemen. So as it turned out, he had to give it to them. But as it turned out, we had a week off. We played a Saturday night game, and we had a week off. Well, after that game, he suspended those three players for a week, and it was just magically for that $500 that they held out for at training camp. So as it turned out, I did speak up, but we had a banquet, and a booster card banquet, and when we were told they were suspended, they were upset, the players. So some of the players asked me, would I go and speak up? So I went to Shore the next day, and I said, but I did say before, I said, I'll tell you right now what's going to happen. I'll go and speak up, and he's going to suspend me. That's first. But I said, I'll still do it. So as it turned out, the next day, I went to meet Eddie Shore as he walked in the rink. And as it turned out, I said, I'm here on behalf of the players and representing them, the three players that he suspended. And he told me I represent nothing. That wasn't his words. I'm cleaning it up. Anyway, as it turned out, I walked back to the dressing room, but Shore beat me to it. And he said, so what's all this? He said, stick around. I got letters for y'all. Anyway, so I came in and I said, guys, there's no use waiting around. I'll try and talk to him tomorrow. And I said, we should leave. So we all left, but we went over to a handy bar across the street to talk about it. And I was pretty smart, for one thing, because Gerry Foley was one of the most respected guys on our team. And I said, Paul, this is probably going to get bigger than we want. Why don't you be a spokesman with me? And I don't mind doing the talking, but I'd like to know that you're with me. He said, yeah. So anyway, before we could get out of that bar, the trainer came in with a letter for me that I was suspended for a different play. Now, we had played the last game on the Saturday night, and I had a goal and 3 assists. So it was a different play. I guess I should have got about 10. I don't know. But anyway, as it turned out, we kept them out, and I kept calling meetings morning and night just to try to keep the guys so they understand what's going on. So we did it for a couple of days, and finally, I didn't realize it would get so big. And finally, we were getting nationwide. We were getting reporters from New York, Boston, Chicago. They're all coming down doing interviews. So we had a rule: no one could do an interview but me. I didn't want to have someone speak and say something that was really going to be detrimental to us. You know, it wasn't very many things we wanted. We just wanted the players back and really proper medical, which we didn't have. And anyway, finally, on the Thursday, I think it was Bill White said, "What about that guy in Toronto that's not Bobby Orr?" He said, "Al Eagles." I said, "Fine." I said, "This is above me." So I called Eagleson, and Eagles said, "I see you got a little bit of a problem down there." I said, "A big one." He said, "I'll fly down tonight." He brought a fellow by the name of Ray Smela with him. They flew into Hartford that night. Gerry Foley and I went and picked them up, brought them in. We had a meeting on Friday. He talked to the players, and he said, "We scheduled a meeting at Shore," and he went over to Shore, and Ray Smale came back and he said, "My advice to all you players is go home, and I'll guarantee you'll be free agents by the end of the year." Anyway, I said, all we want to do is play hockey. You don't get paid while being at home. Anyway, they went and had a meeting with Shore, and the quick result was Shore said that he had agreed to leave the team, and we went on to play and match a record that he had set that would give us a $10,000 bonus. We did it, but we still didn't get in the playoffs. But we all got reinstated, we all played, and the players got the money. But it was the start of the Players Association, because the next year it started. The next year in training camp, Al Eagleson came out, and we started the Players Association in LA.
In LA,
Yeah.
Because the LA Kings essentially took over running Springfield.
They bought Springfield from Eddie Shore.
Okay. And so many of you went to LA in that first season, right?
That's
I mean,
right.
like Eddie Joyal was Bill Flett, yourself, obviously, you scored the first goal. It's so well documented. You scored 2 that night. Had a helper as well, I believe. But there was a number of Springfield grads who went to. You guys were, some of you were older, but you still went to LA. So LA.
Well, he started. Bill White and David Matthews could have played in the National League earlier.
Yeah.
You know, so we got 2 good defensemen right off the bat. And one of the keys to our to getting it off the ground was when they voted for a rep in LA. They voted me as their rep, and Terry Sawchuk was our goaltender. So Terry came to me after the meeting and he said, "Killer, you went through it last year. You don't need another year." He said, "Why don't I be the rep? You could be the assistant with me." And he said, "They can't send me anywhere. They'll probably send you down." So I said, "Why don't I be the rep?" I was their first pick. They can't send me. So anyway, Terry Sawchuk ended up being our rep for LA, and he saved me, because the first thing would have been to break the strike, would have been to send. But later on, we had a meeting in Chicago when all the teams sent in their reps, and again, I was voted one of the 3 reps. And Al Eagleson stepped in and he said he went through it last year. He doesn't need it again this year. We need some names that are here that they can't send down to try to break it. And that's what happened. They got it started, and that was the start of the Players Association. Even though Ted Lindsay tried a couple years earlier.
Yes, absolutely.
But he didn't get the backing that he needed. And they traded a bunch of players from Detroit to Chicago, anyone that backed. But that was a start. They started thinking about it. And I got talking to Ted Lindsay at the Hall of Fame, and Ted Lindsay was very appreciative. I was of him for trying to start it. He was of me for doing what we did.
should mention as well, the introduction, I left out a little fact that Killer's in the Hockey Hall of Fame as well.
That's right.
Inducted in 2003, I believe,
Yeah.
Killer, and deservedly so, and for your spectacular career. Well, I want that noted, everything he just said. This is historic.
Absolutely.
The actual start of the Players Association as we know it today, now being run by Marty Walsh, and so many people since Eagleson. This is where it all began, the genesis of it in 1967. And Killer, you know, you say the name Eddie Shore, you played for him, you were there for a number of years in Springfield, I think from 59 you
I
started
was
there.
8 years there.
8 years in Springfield. Like, we hear the name and it's
almost cartoonish.
yeah, well, yeah, because he brings up so many just images of not only his playing, but then you heard about after and the movies, the Don Cherry movies and everything about Eddie Shore. What could you share with our viewers right now? If I say the name Eddie Shore, what comes to mind for you?
Well, he was a great teacher because his philosophy was move the puck, don't stand still, just move the puck, advance the puck. And he put a lot of emphasis on our team, just quickly moving the puck, so that they always said Springfield were the fastest team in the league. Well, it was we moved the puck faster. We didn't skate any faster. Matter of fact, I was probably the slowest. Me and Bill Sweeney probably the slowest skaters.
And
on
you
our
were the
team.
two top scorers.
Well, we're the slowest too. But anyway, it was the emphasis on movement of the puck and speed. And he was good. If he didn't have anything to do with the money, he would have been good. But because the money was involved in a big factor, he was tough. Like, we didn't have proper hospitalization.
Yeah.
He ordered people out of the hospital when they were in for serious operations. And I could use so many different, I could use a couple of my own. We had to get affidavits when we were going through that problem. And but one that I remember was a fellow by the name of Donnie Johns. He was in, he had a skates license at Lieutenant. The doctor repaired it. He said, you're going to have to stay in the hospital for about 3 or 4 days to make sure there's no infection. And Shore called him up that afternoon and told him if he didn't get into the hospital that night he'd be suspended. Donnie Johns called me and said, what will I do? Well, I said, he will suspend you. But I said, I think I'd call a doctor so that he's aware of what you're going to do. So anyway, he did, but he took himself out of the hospital because he didn't want to be suspended.
Crazy.
I mean, that was just one. I mean,
One of many.
yeah, I mean, I had, I got cross-checked by Fern Flyman in Springfield on Saturday night. We had to take a night train from Springfield to Montreal. Then we took a bus to Quebec for an afternoon game. And I had a sore back, but after the game, I went to Shore and I said, I'm having problems breathing. And he said, you can call this doctor of his personal name. And he put me in a bed. And I lost my breath, and he said, you're all right. So anyway, got on the train and played that afternoon in Quebec. But after the game, I was going across the street, and I ran across the street. We were going to the beer and something to eat. And all of a sudden, I couldn't catch my breath. I went down all fours. So I got up and I got a cab to the hospital. I had 2 broken ribs and a cracked third. And so when I came back to the hotel, I went to Pat Egan, our coach, and I said, I went to the hospital and out for 2 or 3 weeks. I got 2 broken ribs, a cracked third. He said, I better go get Shore. So Shore came out of his room and he said, his first words were to me, who told you to go to the hospital? I said, I told myself. I said, when I couldn't breathe, I figured something was wrong. So I got 2 broken ribs and a cracked rib. Shore said, if you sit back and visualize, you'll be all right. I played Tuesday, I played Saturday, I played Sunday. We didn't have such thing as an injury to take care of.
It's just unbelievable stuff.
You hear this in the sweatshops in in India or wherever, the whippings and everything like that. But to think that this sport was like that. It's unfathomable for somebody who's young, like I mean, younger.
This is the
going through it.
1960s.
No, I know.
This
but-
isn't like the 1920s
We didn't have any,
or
the
30s.
owners, I mean, the National League owners, for instance, weren't completely lily white either.
No. Right.
They did some things, and there was one other story. If you got about 2 minutes, I'll tell it quick.
Yeah, take your time.
I got elbowed in the jaw and finished the game into double overtime. But after the game, I had to go to the hospital, and I had a double fracture of the jaw here and here. So they said it, and we had played Wednesday. It was too swollen to operate Wednesday night. They did it Thursday. So I was in the hospital Friday to recover. I had the wires and everything. And so they let me out Saturday morning. But they said, we had a call from the shore. When you're released from the hospital, we want you to go to the rink. So I went down to the rink, and I saw Shore, and I said, you want me? He said, yeah, I want you to put your equipment on. I want to see if you can absorb pain. So I went and put my equipment on, and I went out in the ice, and Shore had an elevated spot where he stood right at the red line. And he put Pat Egan on the left and me at the blue line on the right. And he said, I want you to collide in front of me to see if you're going to absorb pain. So Pat Egan was about 190 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah, his
Short,
nickname was
stocky.
Boxcar.
Anyway, he was good. And anyway, so we come up and we hit shoulder to shoulder. And Egan didn't let up. He hit me. But Shore said, how's that feel? I said, well, I got a little pain here. That's where I got hit. He said, try the other side. So did it again. He went to blue line, I went to blue line, came back hit this shoulder. He said, how's that? And I said, well, I got a pain over here. I didn't realize I had a double fracture. They never told me. So anyway, I said, a little pain here. You'll be all right. You're in the lineup. So I walked away. So I come down, and I was in the lineup the next night. Played the first period. Lucky for me, the doctor came in. He was late getting to the game that did the surgery. And he saw me out there. I had a plaster cast this way and this way on my head to try to protect me. And he came in and he said, that guy's on the ice. So I went to Shore right away. He said, if he gets hit, he'll be talking to Clint Teeth the rest of his life. And he said, you'll be under a lawsuit forever. So anyway, I only played the one period. They took me out. And because Shore was such a great humanitarian, I became a black ace. I had to report the ice 8 o'clock in the morning to go with the black aces till 10, and then with the regular team from 12 to 2. So there wasn't a lot of fond memories for Shore.
It's well, that's a little, sheds a little bit of light.
Now, let me ask, if I can ask a question, and if you don't want to answer it, you don't have to. But, so Alan Eagleson rides in on a white horse, let's say, and he helped you guys start the Players Association. Where did everything go wrong for someone like him? I mean, you saw some of the stuff. So what happened?
Al Eagleson and Bobby Orr are the best of friends. Matter of fact, he brought Bobby Orr down when we were having that 4-day strike. He brought Bobby Orr down, and Bobby Orr gave the team encouragement, and it was great for the team. But later on, it was Bobby and Al Eagleson had a split, and they had a followed over a couple of things, and then Hockey Cat had a split with Eagleson, and that's where a lot of things went wrong for Al Eagleson. But at that time, Al Eagleson did save us. Because if he doesn't come down, it was way over my head, and
you needed legal. He was a
needed
lawyer.
legal advice, and so he came down, got us to the point where, and then Shore sold the team, and so then everything else became easy. But there was one story I didn't tell, and I'll finish my stories.
Yeah.
You guys can. I had we're at home this night during the strike with the 4 days that we were on, that we didn't practice or even go to the rink, and I had a call. I'm sitting watching TV. Judy answered, my wife Judy answered the phone, and she said, Brian, it's Mr. Campbell for you. I said, oh, hello?
Clarence Campbell, president
Clarence
of the NHL.
Campbell, president of National Hockey League. And his words were, how are you and how nice you are. He said, if you don't get those players back on the ice tomorrow morning, you'll never play a game the rest of your life. And instead of worrying, I got mad and I said, and if you hadn't been using Eddie Shore as a threat all these years, we wouldn't be in this situation now. And he hung up. So I called Eagle the next day, and Eagleson called Clarence Campbell and told him that if he wants to interfere in any way, he'll attack his contract next. And but that was the threat that should, I should have been scared and except my temper and just got the better of me instead of saying yeah well. But anyway, as it turned out, and I know Clarence Campbell did a great job for the National League, and it was a call from Shore to try to get the players back. But anyway, as it turned out, it did work out for the best, and all the players got their money, and Eddie Shore retired, and we went on.
Historic beyond belief. I know we got to move on to the Ottawa 67s, and we don't want to keep you too long, but I have to ask you something. Now, this could be a tough question as well, Killer. It's something I've never asked you. And you mentioned Bill Sweeney, who was so talented by American Hockey League standards. This guy's 100-point. He's on the Springfield team that won. Killer, a guy like Bill Sweeney survives, thrives, and plays so well in the minors, has a brief cup of coffee in the NHL. Floyd Smith, who was there all those years too, and a 40-goal scorer, ends up going on to have a pretty decent career in the National League.
And besides, he was general manager, wasn't he?
Yeah. Why Floyd and not Bill in the National League?
Well, Bill was tough to control. Bill had his own rules. And
I've often wondered this because
he had his own rules, and he slept at his own time. And so it was tough telling a team they had to be in for a curfew and seeing a guy go the other way. But on the ice, he was second on. He was the leader of our team. 3 years in a row, over 100 points. 3 years in a row, over 40 goals. 3 years in a row, we won Calder Cups. There was no doubt that Bill Sweeney was a talent, but you have to, the National League knew that if he played there, he had his own rules, and he was owned by the Rangers. And I think they had an exhibition series over in Europe. And I think he was doing well point-wise, but I think they had a couple of problems with, and they remembered it.
And a name that Chris will know, and then I'll throw it back to you, buddy, because I know you know the name Ted Harris. And I've often asked Killer about Ted Harris because he was on those teams as well. I mean, Noel Price, Ted Harris. Look at your D that was there, like
Bob McCord, Ian Cushman.
Like this is murderous. This is absolute and tough D. Like
tough. We all grew about 3 inches. The forwards weren't tough, but if you tangled with us, we had those guys and they could all handle it. And to this day, I still think we had Bob McCord, who was actually he walks, and he was tough. But there was so many tough guys, no price of that. But there was so many tough guys. Teddy Harris was the toughest, and Teddy Harris and John Ferguson, 1 year Montreal got eliminated 4 straight the year before. The next year they added Ted Harris and John Ferguson, and they won the Stanley Cup. What does that tell you?
Do the math. Do the math. I want to Killer to share that with you because I know you know the name Ted Harris. I've asked Brian many times about that D and many other players on Springfield, but these guys all went on the National League and had outstanding careers. Like Ted Harris, Stanley Cup winner. Noel Price on the '66 winner with the Habs.
Yes, he was.
And Bob McCord played the show. I mean, there was a lot of these guys all play. As did you. But there was so many. Ken Douglas, Rookie of the Year in '63 with Toronto. Speak about tough. Holy lifting. But
Floyd Smith did well. Jimmy Anderson ended up being coach. Kenny Schenkel.
Larry Hillman.
Well, yeah, and then Ken Schinkel ended up general manager of.
Yeah.
He drafted Mario Lemieux
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Pittsburgh. So we had an abundance of talent, as well as guys that knew the game, and it was no secret. We had a pretty good team. Terry Reardon was the general manager of Baltimore when we won one of the 3 Calder Cups.
Yeah.
And Terry Reardon said that if we played in the National League, we would make the playoffs.
Wow.
He made that statement. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. I never heard you say that before. And you know, in that too, Chris, was Don Cherry was in that mix.
Sure he was.
You know,
Don was
Grapes
one of the original.
was
He
in
was
that
tough
mix.
and he could hit. And sure, for some reason I always picked on Don, but didn't matter. And Don never cared about points. Could care. He played defensive hockey,
Yeah.
and he was physical. He'd catch you with your head down or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's where I met Don. 1959. We've been friends ever since.
Yeah, I love that too. That you and Grapes go that far back, and he, of course, has spoken so fondly of you so many times. And you had the junior hockey showcase there for years, right? And you and Bert would go, and Grapes was there too, right?
Oh yeah, Don did a lot of things that for a lot of groups, individuals that needed help. Never charged. He went anywhere, everywhere.
Yeah.
And never charged. And there's one story I'll never forget. We were doing a prospect game in Kitchener, and somehow after the banquet, I would say 2 or 3 classes must have got out of school early, and they come down all looking for autographs. And this was 2:30. They sort of flooded it, got into the rink. Don Cherry stayed and signed every autograph till every kid left with an autograph. Never left. I'd say we stayed there till 4 o'clock. He was an incredible guy, and he still is. He does a lot of things that go unnoticed.
And so sad about his daughter passing away suddenly as she did, and I know how close he is with his family, as we all are. But I mean, that was a public, because Cindy was a great lady, and has his Tim, his son, and who the Bruins helped years ago medically. So it was it's a close knit.
Well, the funny part was why Tim is. Felt so bad was that when Tim was born, he had a kidney problem.
Right. Yeah.
Cindy gave one of her kidneys to keep Tim going, and so they certainly had a bond between them. And Don and Rose at the time, and now Aluba, they're a strong family.
Absolutely. Got something before we slide to 67s?
Yeah. Well, I want to. It's kind of transitionary question. So your playing career is coming to an end. You have ahead of you, without the knowledge of the future, a Hall of Fame coaching career. But that period of where you're thinking, okay, my career's ending. How did you feel? Like I would think that there would be, I don't know, fear. I don't know. What were you feeling when you decided, or when you kind of, I don't want to say tripped into coaching, but when you finally got into coaching from a player's career?
Well, it was my own choosing. I was out in Denver. I joined them in January. At the same time, Bill Ingemean, the Ottawa guy.
That's right.
We both joined them and finished the year in Denver. But we were starting the restaurant business in town, and they had asked me would I run the restaurant for them. And I said, sure. I said, when I come back. So I come back and I was running this restaurant because they had bought this one. It was the embassy of Vancouver with no knowledge of running a restaurant. I was a customer for all those years. Anyway, as it turned out, I'm running this restaurant. I get a call from Denver, and they offered me more money than I ever made on a contract before. And they said, if you'll come back, we'll give you this. I said, I can't. I gave my word to Nick Morris,
Yep.
Bill Morris, Jimmy Scott, Bob Wilson, Gary Allen. There was this group that had this restaurant, Glenmore, So anyway, I stayed with the restaurant, and Tommy Ray, a school teacher in Ottawa, was helping the 67s. I ended up coaching a minor league team, the West Ottawa Golden Knights. I said, no, first off, I started with Tykes, Billy, my son, and we just had fun doing it. And so as it turned out, Tommy Ray asked me if I'd coach this midget team in the West End. So I coached the midget team in the West End for a year, and then there was a fellow in Ron Palmer who passed away, and we ended up playing the Russians to that historical game. And I was the coach of that. And then I went back and coached that year. I was coaching St. Bobby's. And it was at that time that Leo Boylan and Rosen Kiro both had resigned from the 67s. And so they asked me if I'd be interested in coaching. And that's how we got started. So I wasn't cut on so my career wasn't cut short. But it was my own. I retired because I was at the end, and I lost a stride that I couldn't afford.
Brian Smith was on that team too. Was he on that Denver team?
Denver, yeah. Oh yeah. And, I enjoyed it. It was a great finish. Some good guys on it, especially like I said, Brian and Billy Deneen.
Yeah.
And but then, as my dad always said, things are cut for the best. And who ever thought that I'd come back, run a restaurant with no knowledge, and then coach a minor, just types, and then a midget team, and then go and coach the 67s. And it's been a lifetime association. I'm still with them, and I scouted until last year, and I just happy that I ended the 67.
What's your proudest thing with the 67s, would you say, Killer, in that multi-decade association? There's so many to choose from. Is it even fair to say one, or is there?
Well, yeah, the one would be win the Memorial Cup.
Yeah.
In Ottawa. I mean, our hometown.
Yeah.
I mean, I was born here, and they always said you can't coach in your hometown. The fans were great to me from day one, and so winning the Memorial Cup here in Ottawa, our fans, I don't think that could be taught except when I was inducted.
Yeah.
That would be the two highlights of the hockey side, not my marital side.
No, for sure. But you hit a home run there.
Yeah.
You've got an amazing wife and an incredible family. And I remember I met you formally actually at Billy's Stag, the first time that we actually met. That's many years ago as well.
Lake.
It was at Dells Lake. You're 100% bang on. I remember coming up and talking to you about guys that were in junior at that time who were friends of mine, and you pulled no punches about some of their ability or lack thereof. But Killer, this isn't, I don't know how you're going to answer this, but I mean, your longevity of success, the years that you were able to keep the 67s winning. You got a handful of losing seasons in almost 3 decades of coaching. What would you attribute that success to?
Well, we had some great assistant coaches that sort of got overlooked, and I had basically three chief scouts: Jack Ferguson, Joe Rowley, Patty Higgins.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, they found players that could play in the 5th round, the 8th round, the 10th round, and we always end up with good players and good teammates.
Yeah.
And so I can attribute a lot of my success to the people that were associated with the club.
Yeah.
So let me ask you on that.
And the players.
And the players.
Yeah, of course.
Well, and to that end, you were saying you had good teammates. So I'm going to ask you three people. Toughest player you ever had, most talented player you ever had, and the best in the dressing room.
Real quick. Well, the most talented is a question that I'll sidestep only because Bobby Smith and Doug Wilson were both multi-talented talented, different position. Bobby still owns the record for points in our league, 192.
Yeah.
Over Gretzky, over McDavid, over everybody. So Bobby Smith, Doug Wilson came. He was the only guy I ever saw could score from the blue line, not screen. Just a tremendous defenseman. So they were probably the two. In the dressing room, that would be tough because we had so many guys that, but there was one guy that he wasn't the most talented, probably wasn't the toughest, but he stuck up for every player, and that was David Bell.
Yeah.
And David Bell was a defensive force, and there wasn't a player in our team wouldn't do whatever Dave Bell said. And as a leader, Nick won. We won the Memorial Cup, and I'll never forget we got beat this game so that we had to play. Now was sudden day for the Memorial Cup, and Nick Boynton was our captain that time, and he told every player when we lost that day, he said, we're going home. And he stood up in the dressing room. Everyone. We're going home, and we're going to come down here tomorrow. And every player listened to him, they went home. And the next day, we were lucky enough to win in overtime. So there are three phases, different things that you're saying.
And where would you slot in a guy like Lance Galbraith, God rest his soul?
Well, he was one of those guys that he was an inspiration. He never thought there was a game we shouldn't win. He was one of those guys in the dressing room, always came ready. I'd go down to the rink about 4:30 every night, just go over their lineup, have a cigar, and go over the lineup. I couldn't beat Lance Galbraith in the dressing room. I always liked to be first. When I was a player, as a coach, couldn't beat Lance Galbraith. He was one of those guys that everything was for team. So 5 years with us, a lot of games, but he was a diehard. Wasn't the most talented, but certainly he gave us all every game.
Yeah. And for me, my final foray with Killer here would be to say, or maybe Killer, if you could offer up a comment about how incredible it was post-game to be in the room with the garbage bag full, usually a bunch of, not the bag, but the garbage container, a lot of cans of beer in there, filled right to the top, usually a lot of Molson X, I just want to put that out there. And the amount of guys that would come in to say hi to you from the other teams that were there scouting, the officials, the NHL superstars, Hall of Famers that would come in that room post-game, including some of the guys who you meet here on Tuesdays at Broadway's.
Well, Terry Marcotte used to follow us, and Donnie Brennan.
The Voice.
He's covered, and Dave Schreiber. Yeah, they used to come down, and I'll never forget that one of the Hall of Famers, there was many, I couldn't name them all, but one time Bobby Hull was in the room, and so I was sitting beside him, and he started telling a couple of stories, and he said, after about one or two, he said, Killer, he said, is this all right? I said, anything, Bobby, I said, anything said in this room stays in the room. I said, all these guys are trustworthy. And that was the fact. No one ever tried to sneak a column in or everything. And I think because of that, all players that came in, whether it was ex-national leaguers or whatever, they'd come in and feel free. And they told many a story that we enjoyed. They just took over. It was their room too.
You know, the Ottawa European Sports Club, I think the Hams had played a huge role in Gordy and Bruce, longtime dear friends of yours.
He was an assistant coach at the time, and I didn't mention, Bert O'Brien, Gordy Hamilton, Peter Gaw, and Vince Mott. They were basically the four, as they didn't get the credit. They looked after little things that sometimes the court doesn't hear.
Well, sitting there, and I'll finish by saying, sitting there with your Uncle Ken and Connie Brown And some of those guys that were stalwarts from this city, not only in National League, but in minor leagues and hockey all around in the 40s, late 30s, your uncles, Heck and Wally as well, deserve credit as well for their time in the National League. And man, oh man, this has been awesome.
Yeah. Oh,
It's been fantastic.
I want to say two things before we finish, and it's not to blow smoke up your ass or anything like that, but having been the success that you've been, and then having to retire, do you ever go, I can do that better? Or do you ever have a thought that, you know, you can help? And certainly the 60s.
You mean watching hockey today?
Watching hockey today as a coach. You see, I mean, you see all the different type of coaching styles that are out there. And I know from, you know, from when I was a kid, and you know this, Jim Fox was not an original 67, right? He was a Spitfire, right? And he hated it. Could not. He gave up his love for hockey until you came along. And so, I guess it's a two-part question. One, what was your secret sauce, magic for guys? Because everybody seems to have the same opinion of you. And what do you think the progression of coaching has been today that is different?
Well, I just, you know, when players came to us, whatever happened in the past, I didn't care. I mean, we knew Lance Gabbard had a problem before he did. It's what you do starting now. And we tried to treat everybody the same. We wanted to make sure we came to Ottawa, played for the 6 Evans, had fun, and when you leave, when your time is up, that you could look back and say, I learned a little and I had a lot of fun. And I thought that was the philosophy that worked for me, because the players did for me. They had fun, and I had more fun. But we had our times, but I mean, there had to be fun involved. And when I see today's game, everybody is, you know, they got their coaching because of their success and whatever. And the only thing I could say that if I was to help somebody would be that sometimes they don't advance the puck. And you know, when you're coming up the blue line and you may be 2 or 3 or 4 strides behind, you got a winger ahead of you. Give him the puck. Drive the defense off the blue line, because if you don't, he's got to stop, and now he's lost his momentum. So when I watch a game, I said, oh, he's a little too late. But I mean, I realize coaching is tough with the individuals now and the money that's there and everything else. So any coach that's coaching today is earning his money, because it's a different world.
That's for sure. That is for sure.
I'm going to take a snippet of what you just said. I'm playing men's league tonight, and I need that to move the puck ahead. Guys are watching these, say, you know that goal, they drop the puck back and they try to do all these. Okay, yeah, guys are 60 years old and they're trying to do that. It's like, buddy, just pass the puck.
Headman the puck.
Just headman the puck.
Headman the puck. Hey, you got taught
you know
that.
what I mean? And
Why did that guy stop? Like, he's beating it. He may have his winger beat if he's beat you. He may beat it. So if you don't either give him the puck or shoot it in, let him get it first. No. So when you hold on to it, now he's stopped. He's out of the play, basically.
That's right.
He's stopped. So now you only have this side to worry about.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what? That's exactly my argument tonight. In the dressing room, I'm telling them, and I'm saying it's from you. I hope it does too. Well,
Yeah,
listen.
we never got to mention guys like Tank and Stump and so many others that were instrumental to you. I know that Lone Ranger, Dave, of course.
Yes, they were.
Yeah, those guys, I know that meant so much to you. But you know, Killer, I can't thank you enough, Chris.
I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Killer, thank you so much.
And I hope that we can maybe do this another time and talk about more things, because I know that you have 100,000 more stories.
We did.
I read your book, guys.
Yeah, I got
There
all
you
the
go.
stories, and some I couldn't tell.
Yeah. Even on a webcast, you can't.
Maybe we need to get those. Anyways, thank you very much. This has been Offside with Hawes McGuire. I'm Hawes.
I'm McGuire.
And that's Mr. Kilrea.